I was tempted every now and then to tweak the Christians a little bit. Especially this one lecturer, I've forgotten her name, and she spoke very persuasively about our present transition from patriarchy to matriarchy, from the patriarchal paradigm to the matriarchal paradigm. So I asked her that question, is Christianity then obsolete as we move from patriarchy to matriarchy? Well, she didn't answer it. There is no answer to that.
Reflective criticism of religious tradition is part of the mandate here. Paradigm 1 and Paradigm 2, which sees the masculine in conflict with the feminine, are nothing new to Judaism, Buddhism, or Christianity.
I told you the Jewish philosopher and theologian Philo. He saw that Sophia was gaining a lot of influence. And so what he decided to do is that he said, no. We need to go back to the masculine. So Logos is more important than Sophia. In fact, Sophia is part of Logos. So just to be aware is that a lot of times what happened is Philo restricted her divine wisdom and kind of put her into Logos. And so this aspect of Logos was the influence that came about in the first century. So that when you then read the New Testament, all of a sudden, Sophia is hidden.
In the same reflective, critical spirit, this gathering of admirers of Carl Jung is prepared to embrace critical perspectives on Jung himself. His theories are a product of their time, and their creator had his own shadow to contend with.
What is the difference between God and Jung? Now you may think about this. Now the answer is God does not believe that he is Jung. Well, there are probably various reasons why people admire the person and why there is such a cult around the personal figure. First of all, there seems to be a general need to admire. But I do think that this is rather dangerous. Plus, I think I don't know if perhaps those who are responsible in creating such an image, if they have overseen or if they did not use their responsibility to make the picture whole. After all, wholeness was such a central issue in analytical psychology. The shadow aspects of Jung as a person had always been left out, which I think is unfortunate, because he would appear to be more human when we look at what the shadow issues were. So I think for us who come later, with all modesty and with the decent respect that we need, we should address all these issues about his involvement and his allowing himself to be instrumentalized for the Nazi propaganda. I think we should look at how much of his personal biography contributed to certain concepts of his theory. He was very introverted, and I think the fact that he was a victim of sexual abuse, as he himself has pointed out, a victim of a homosexual assassination, as he calls it in the letter to Freud, how much this might have changed not only changed, but had contributed to his understanding of sexuality. I think his understanding of incest and the spiritualization of incest, jumping, for my taste, a little bit too quickly to the hieroskamos and not acknowledging the victim-perpetrator relationship in so many of these cases of sexual abuse. So we need to look at this from a new perspective, which does not mean to devaluate his work, but to look what has to be expanded or corrected and further developed.
The delegates in 2000 have the rare and unforgettable opportunity of visiting Bolingen, Jung's summer home, and to see the tower he designed and the extraordinary sculptures he engraved in the walls. Perhaps more than anywhere else, one feels the living presence of Jung in this space. Indeed, Jung felt that the building and land were extensions of himself.
At Bolingen, I am in the midst of my true life. I am most deeply myself. At times, I feel as if I am spread out over the landscape and inside things, and am myself living in every tree, in the splashing of the waves, in the clouds and the animals that come and go in the procession of the seasons. There is nothing in the tower that has not grown into its own form over decades, nothing with which I am not linked. From the beginning I felt the tower as in some way a place of maturation, a maternal womb, or a maternal figure in which I could become what I was, what I am, and what I will be. It gave me a feeling as if I were being reborn in stone. It is thus a concretization of the individuation process. Here, everything has its history, and mine. Here is space for the spaceless kingdom of the worlds and of Psyche's hinterland.
Jung explored his personal and the collective unconscious through his sculpting. Jungian training and the Einsiedel experience also call for self-reflection and expression through art.
Our task is to bring consciousness and unconsciousness into an active and creative relationship. This will facilitate our becoming aware of our inner wisdom through life experiences. One way to do this is to give visible shape to our unconscious reactions and images in a drawing or painting. I know that artwork for many is very threatening, and rightly so, because it has been ruined probably from pre-kindergarten on. So there are many inhibitions, and usually there is actually terror before we enter the art room for the first time for some people. It is important not for the picture to be technically satisfying or artistic, but for the fantasy to have free play. For some people, this can take the form of inner dialogue as you come to what you want to express. Others neither see nor hear anything inside themselves, but their hands seem to know how to release meaning and form in clay or other materials. So trust that. The attitude we want to enter into our own creative process in this conference with is that the process is full of surprises and discovery. You will not know what is going to be coming out of you. You are tapping into a dark, hidden place within.
I did not see this until hours later. It was on the floor, and I found a turtle here.
Oh, so it is, look.
Had no idea, because it seemed like a flower, but there's that turtle, completely unaware. So, I think there really is something to tapping into the unconscious of things that you just don't know about.
For unbelievers outside the process and for critics from within, the act of exploring the so-called unconscious can sometimes be seen as an indulgence that degenerates into navel-gazing and narcissism.
You have encountered, I would assume, criticism of analytical psychology of Jung that this is a psychology that fosters life in an ivory tower. That these people who study at the Institute, that they are hopeless introverts who are not able to cope within their own extroverted culture, and they feel drawn to this. And so it's a kind of a compensation, and they are not related, and they just go through the world with some kind of a subjective umbilical cord, constantly reflecting on themselves and constantly immersed in themselves. That they might possibly foster an age of narcissism.
But for Jungians, the exploration of the unconscious is an essential and life-affirming endeavor. It is a landscape populated by archetypal images that will challenge one's intellect, one's conscious personality, perhaps one's very soul.
Now in Buddhism, you also have a different type of female manifestations of the Buddha that are much more puzzling, especially to the man. They are erotic, they are seducing, they are dancing, they are doing all these things that in early Buddhism was not possible. They are playing, they are scaring, they are making prophecies, and they are appearing on the human realm, they are appearing on the subtle body realm. I mean, they can come in visions, they can come in many ways, and these are called the dakinis.
A day trip to Zurich includes a visit to the 500-year-old home of Martin Kalf, an eminent Jungian analyst and theologian.
Especially for the men, they are very hard to catch, to understand. They appear, for example, there was a priest, and then he was there in his courtyard. A woman comes, she belongs to the low caste. He was from a Brahmin caste, from a high caste, so should not even have anything to do with her. And then she says, "Oh, I want to live with you." Then he says, "No way, I mean, how could I? I'm from the Brahmin caste and you're a low woman." But then she disappears, and he noticed that the doors were shut, and that was very mysterious. Then he asks somebody, and then this person says, "Well, she was a dakini, and you missed the chance to be with her." And they challenge the moral and ethical concepts that are too rigid, too solid. It does not mean that you have to abandon morality, but you have to understand in which moment it could be right to transgress something. It is very dangerous, very difficult. Because if you do it at the wrong moment, you go to very unfortunate rebirth, according to Buddhism. But there are moments when you could be asked to do something that is against the concepts of morality in your society, in your time, or in your religion, and it still might be the right thing. It's a very dangerous concept. It can be abused, and it has been abused, I think, also in Buddhism. But because it does presuppose a very strong ethical foundation. That's the paradox. It's not for somebody who has not developed that.
Jungian's fascination with the mythical extends as much to the present as it does to antiquity.